When it comes to Sebastian Vettel's early F1 career, it's something that I don't think is talked about enough. Maybe it's just me, but the perception of Seb when he came into F1 really does seem to be that he came in, he won a race in Monza, and then he was at Red Bull. But in fact, there was so much magic in between those key moments, and there was so much more to 2008 than just Monza. So let's take a look at Seb's F1 career in a little bit more detail before he came to Red Bull. Just like any aspiring F1 driver, Seb started in go-karts, and what really stands out to me is that he was one of the first kids at a really young age to be supported by Red Bull. They started supporting him financially as early as 1998 as a sponsor, but it was in 2001 when he was officially part of the Red Bull Junior program. Unsurprisingly, Seb had a very successful kart career, especially at a junior level, winning the European Championships, the German Kart Championship, and the Monaco Kart Club Championship in just 2001 alone. He finally made the step up to single-seaters for the first time in 2003 in the Formula BMW ADAC Championship, and as a rookie, the talent was obvious. He finished second in the championship in his first season, taking 5 wins and 12 podiums, and then came back in 2004 and had one of the most ridiculous seasons in a junior series that I have ever seen. In the 2004 Formula BMW season, he won 18 out of 20 races and finished on the podium in every single race. Let me just say that again, 18 wins in 20 races. Just ridiculous. The next phase of his career would be a very interesting one as he graduated and raced in Formula 3 for 2005 and 2006. This was really the first glimpse that we got to see of him fighting against drivers that he would later go on and race with in Formula 1, with the most famous example being in 2005 when Seb came 5th in the championship, but on many occasions fought with Lewis Hamilton, who was the champion that year. Also in the following season, in 2006, Seb improved to finish second in F3, and this time losing out to Paul di Resta, which has got to be his biggest flex ever of beating Seb in a junior category to a title. Off the back of his dominant Formula BMW season, he was now jointly sponsored by both BMW and Red Bull, and as a reward he was offered to test a Formula 1 car for the very first time by Williams BMW at Jerez at just the age of 18. Now, this is where it gets a little bit confusing because, as I said, Vettel was now officially sponsored by BMW, while at the end of 2005 BMW had left Williams as an engine supplier, and for 2006 had bought into the Sauber team to become an official works team, with it now being the BMW Sauber F1 team. The beginning of Seb's time in F1 would really be a tale of fortunate circumstances going his way and falling in the right place. In 2006, the BMW Sauber team decided mid-season to drop Jacques Villeneuve because they had another exciting talent waiting in the wings in Robert Kubica. Robert had been the team's test and reserve driver, so when he made the step up to replace Villeneuve full-time in mid-2006, the role of test and reserve driver opened up and was now taken by Seb. Seb would make his debut in an official F1 weekend during the Friday FP1 and FP2 sessions at the 2006 Turkish Grand Prix, becoming the youngest driver ever to take part in an F1 weekend. In FP1 he finished 8th in the standings, but then amazingly, he topped the timesheet at the end of FP2 with the fastest lap. However, what's even more amazing is that that's not even the thing that's most remembered, because in his excitement to get out on track, he also broke another record for getting the fastest ever penalty just 9 seconds into his F1 career when he sped in the pit lane. No one really cared though, because the job he did and the speed he showed in the car more than justified the trust that BMW had shown in him. Late 2006 and early 2007 would see him continue his role as BMW's test and reserve driver, but then in a twist of fate we would finally see him be given his big chance to make his Grand Prix debut. At the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix, Robert Kubica famously had his heavy crash coming into the stadium section. Remarkably, all he suffered were a few bruises and a sprained ankle, but even so, he was still ordered by the doctors to rest for the next race, which meant for the US Grand Prix at Indianapolis, BMW would have a spare car, and this is where Seb would make his Grand Prix debut. Now, back then, being a test driver involved a lot more than just wearing a team's shirt and doing a few laps on a sim. Seb, over the course of a year, got plenty of seat time and was well prepared in a very good BMW Sauber. But even so, it was as perfect of a debut as you could get under the circumstances. He qualified 7th overall, just 2 places and 7/10 behind his teammate Nick Heidfeld, and then in the race, despite almost piling into a bunch of cars at the very first corner, after that he was fast and stayed completely out of trouble, even getting into a good battle with Webber at the end. He would go on to finish 8th overall, which under the old point system meant that he had scored a point on his Grand Prix debut. After just one outing in the BMW Sauber, it was now Red Bull who started to really see the potential in Seb, and yet again, fate would intervene. Toro Rosso dropped Scott Speed mid-season in 2006 after allegedly a physical altercation between him and Franz Tost, but regardless, this opened up the opportunity for Seb to step in until the end of the season. Seb would get a total of 7 races in the Toro Rosso to end the season, and for the most part it was just a case of gaining experience because the Toro Rosso wasn't anywhere near as good as the BMW that he drove in Indy. For the most part, there wasn't too much to shout about in the last 7 races, but there was a really interesting scenario between 2 back-to-back race weekends. Fuji was the 3rd to last race of the season and was one of those ridiculously wet races where visibility was pretty much non-existent. Vettel had starred in qualifying, getting his Toro Rosso up to P9, and then in the race he had an exceptional first half and was running 3rd on the road and looked set to score his first F1 podium. Unfortunately, this is also the famous incident where under the safety car, he then crashed into the back of Mark Webber in the Red Bull. And if there's anything worse than 2 Red Bulls crashing into each other, it's a Toro Rosso crashing into a Red Bull. Seb was distraught and Mark was frustrated because a double podium for the 2 Red Bull teams had gone down the drain. After the race, Vettel was given a 10-place grid penalty for the next race out in China, but then after further investigation, which included apparently fan footage from a website called YouTube, whatever that was, in 2007, the stewards further concluded that potentially Lewis, who was leading the safety car queue, also might have had a part to play in the difference in speed between Mark and Seb. In the end, no one was found predominantly at fault, as it was just a racing incident in horrible conditions where visibility was terrible. But Seb's 10-place grid penalty was rescinded, and a good job that it was, because the next race, which was also another wet Grand Prix, Toro Rosso and Seb would have their best race yet. Fellow Toro Rosso driver Vitantonio Liuzzi just outqualified Seb in China, with the 2 starting 11th and 12th. But then in the race, Seb would go on to have one of his more underrated drives in my opinion, as Liuzzi finished in 6th, but Seb climbed all the way up to finish in 4th place, which was Toro Rosso's best result up until that point. Seb's first half season in F1 that would see him making a surprise debut and then a mid-season call-up had drawn to a close. He stayed with Toro Rosso for 2008, but now he'd be able to properly prepare for his full rookie season in 2008, but with the added experience that he gained from 2007. His new teammate would also be a Sebastian, which I'm sure was very fun for the team, with Frenchman Sébastien Bourdais. The first 5 races were really nothing to shout about, however, as Toro Rosso had to delay bringing in their brand new car for the 2008 season, so instead they had to use an updated version of their 2007 car. Once the new car did arrive, however, in Monaco, it made an immediate impact, and on its debut, Seb once again starred in mixed conditions to finish 5th in the new car. From then on, Seb was a consistent point scorer. In the 13 races from Monaco until the end of the season, Seb scored points in 9 out of the 13 races. Now, the Toro Rosso was a solid midfield car, but even so, that level of consistency was just incredible. There were many exceptional performances by Seb peppered throughout 2008, including 2 5th-place finishes in Spa and Singapore, and even a 4th-place finish in the final round in Brazil. And of course, there was Monza. Now, we all know that Seb would take a sensational first win along with pole position, but except for having an exceptional driver at the wheel, which always helps, how did he manage to set both pole and get the win? The Toro Rosso did have real pace that weekend, and what often gets forgotten is that even Seb's teammate Bourdais actually qualified in 4th, but ultimately it was a combination of a great lap by Seb on the right tyres, whilst all of the top teams chose the wrong set of tyres for those conditions. But it was the race where Seb was just flawless. The perfect start, only one tiny mistake midway through, and in the end, although Lewis did catch up to Seb and actually looked to overtake him for the win, McLaren then chose the wrong tyre again for the next stop, which gave Seb the breathing room that he needed. When a midfield team gets a big result, luck always needs to go their way, but make no mistake, this was a thoroughly deserved win and just showed the level that even a young Seb was at already. This might have been the highlight result that people remember, but as you can probably tell from this video, it was one of many great races by him that year, and he started to really show over and over again that when the conditions got wet, he was always a driver who can produce something special. I think also what's amazing is by this point Seb had already been announced as a Red Bull driver for 2009, with DC retiring from F1. And my favorite thing is that when he did get announced, he didn't just get comfortable, he upped his game even more and had an even stronger end to the season. There are so many amazing stats to come out of Monza and out of that 2008 season. Seb had become the youngest ever pole sitter and race winner in F1 history. He remains, even to this day, the only driver to ever win a race using a Ferrari engine, but not for the Ferrari team. Him winning in a Toro Rosso also meant that the sister team got their first win before the top team, and by the end of the season, Toro Rosso finished ahead of Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. To say that Seb carried Toro Rosso on his back would be an understatement to say the least. And also one last thing, and this is actually more of a potential future stat, if Seb is able to take Aston Martin's first ever win in Formula 1 before Lance or anyone else, he will become the only driver in Formula 1 history to take the first ever win for 3 different teams. So there is still potentially records for Seb to chase on the horizon. So that rounded out an incredible season and a half of Seb's rookie heroics. People talk about young drivers needing to earn their mettle and show something special in a midfield car before they should be able to go to a top team, and Seb definitely did that and then some. As far as what happened next when he moved to Red Bull, well, you know the rest. Well, there you have it, another video wrapped up. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. And as always, if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop it a like and smash that subscribe button to support the channel. And I will see you in the next one.